Welcome to another episode of Down in the Blocks with Chris Young, the former Michigan center, number 45 out of Detroit Catholic Central. Played for the Wolverines late 90s, early 2000s. And we've been going on a roller coaster ride together on this Michigan basketball team. Let's go back to the Purdue game. The blowout Purdue win, Chris. It's been starting with that win, and then it's win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, all the way to Sunday in Columbus. Hunter Dickinson has a tummy ache. He's got some kind of stomach virus, cannot play. And the spacing was impeccable.
Yes.
The foot speed was great. Fluidity of play, 94 feet. What the hell happened? How did Michigan win that freaking game and now sets up pretty decent for the NCAA tournament?
I think they just looked at it as, look, it's next man up. We're down our best player, and so everybody has to step up. And they knew this was basically a win or go home. They don't beat Ohio State, then they have to get the Big Ten tournament. You have to win at least 2, maybe 3 games to not be one of the the play-in games for the tournament or something like that. So they all the guys understood, and I'm sure Eli Brooks gave them a little talking to about, man, let's go. Like we have to win this. We have to get this game. And Ohio State is not a better team than us. They've got some individual players that are phenomenal. I mean, Liddell he's lights out. He's an NBA player.
Right.
But, otherwise they match up really well with them. And they Michigan made some shots. They were able to up and down, and they played very well. But I have to say, I didn't hear about Hunter not playing until, 5 or 10 minutes before tip-off. So, I got my adult beverage. I'm sitting down in the chair, like gearing up, getting ready to watch the game. And it's like, oh, man, Hunter's not playing. Like, this is just going to be a train wreck of a game. And then they started, and it was like, man, who is this team? Like, where has this been? I mean, because there's sequences, okay, Hunter's playing 30-plus per game. But, there's 8 or 10 minutes where he's not playing. Where's this version of the team been, where they just get up and down and defend and just do everything that they need to do? And then the play of Moussa Diabate was phenomenal.
Well, speaking of Moussa Diabate, we go back and forth. I mean, let's go back to the Iowa game. Now, keep in mind the Iowa game, Illinois on Sunday, Michigan State, that big win over the Spartans on Tuesday. They play Iowa. We haven't talked since then. And they dug themselves a big lead, or big deficit. Iowa had the big lead with all the threes and the gunners that they have, and one of the hottest teams in college basketball. So you have that. And then, but you get an extra day off, which is a glorious thing. But then you're going without Hunter. But then Diabate plays. I thought it was one of his worst games against Iowa. He's fumbling the ball. He couldn't finish. And then he was pretty doggone good against Ohio State. But sometimes I think he's better by himself out on the floor and getting away from the two bigs.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. When Hunter's on the floor, he kind of defers to Hunter, as everyone kind of does. He lets Hunter get to the block. He lets Hunter get to his spots where, on Sunday, Moussa was just kind of going where he wanted to. He knew he wasn't going to run into another 7-footer. He knew there wasn't going to be, there wasn't going to be a whole lot of double teaming on him. So he was able to play more freely and more creative. And also, he had a really good game against Iowa and Iowa City. I mean, his best game by far this season. I mean, he was catching everything and dunking everything. And I think, as a freshman, you kind of think, oh, well, I cooked these guys a couple weeks ago. Going into that second Iowa game in Ann Arbor, I'm going to cook them again. Everything's just going to work, and it's going to be, pretty easy. And he had a case of fumbleitis. He couldn't hold on to the ball at all. He couldn't finish around the rim. And I think he was really trying to get back and show, like, look, I'm really capable of doing this on a fairly consistent basis.
Yeah,
but talking about the Iowa game, I mean, sitting there watching that Iowa game, Michigan was down 16-18, from the jump, and
17 at halftime.
Yeah, and it always felt like it was, oh man, they're not playing well, but it never felt out of reach. You watch some of these games where it's a 15 or 20 point game, and it's like, man, this game's over. Like, we got no chance.
They got down to 7 or 5. One of the two.
It always felt like Michigan had a chance to make a run and make like one shot and one play and one shot, and they were right back in it, and they just never were able to truly get over that hump. They made a couple of good pushes, but they just never really got there. But it was a very positive sign that it never felt out of reach. As good as Iowa's shooting the ball right now, it just never felt like, oh man, they're just going to run us out of the gym and this game's over.
Well, one thing that has been consistent as of late is Devontae Jones has been in the back half of the year. He's made that adaptation, going from the Sun Belt, Coastal Carolina, Expectations high, following Mike Smith on that same grad transfer thing, and he's
Yep.
clicking. He's got it cooking right now because actually he did play good against Iowa, and then think about what he did: 21-9 against Ohio State. He
Yep.
took command of that floor.
Yep.
He had a little Derek Walton thing going on there.
Yep.
As far as command of the game, I thought.
Finally, which is exactly what we expected from him at the beginning of the season. And then it was November and December and then January and now February and now March. It's really clicking. He's finally figured out, yes, I can play at this level. Yes, I can score at this level. I mean, there's been a couple of games where he's been, flirting with a triple-double because he's that much engaged now with everything that's going on. He's being a true point guard where he's standing there and handling the ball and he's directing traffic. Okay, you go here and you go here and you go here and run the offense. And, we don't have anything, so I'll just break people down and get to the bucket and finish, or I'll knock down a three. Like, he's really, really coming to his own. And this is what we all expected from him. But, coming from, where he came from and transferring into the Big Ten and all the expectations with, like you said, all the great point guards that we've had over the last, decade, it was a lot of expectations. But now he is living up to, and I mean, almost exceeding what our expectations were. I never expected him to be a 19-9 guy. I mean, that was never really a thing. I thought he'd be a 12 or 14 point guy per game, and then maybe 4 or 5 or 6. But I mean, he's averaging 8 or 9 rebounds in some of these games. He's getting 6 or 7 or 8 assists. I mean, he's doing everything that this team needs him to do.
Well, we got to talk about Terence Williams too, because that's a every third game occurrence.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
It's coming. I think it's every third or every fourth. And I'm not dissing on the kid. I think he's he's got an amazing attitude. And I'm gonna tell you what. I mean, he had that misfortune. Was it the Seton Hall game where he missed the key free throw? I mean, you got to bounce back from that. Resiliency, and you know what this is obviously about. When you have a misfortune, you got to bounce back and move on. It's the metaphor of life, sports. Yes. And I thought he could really play good. He's 4 for 4 from the free throw line. I thought was cool, and 3 for 4 beyond the arc. Yep. He 17 points for T. Well, talk about him and how good this kid could be next year. Not to get ahead of ourselves.
Oh man, if he makes a step like he made from last year to this year, if he makes another step like that again, he might not be around for that next year. I mean, he's got that type of ability. He's able to do kind of a little bit of everything. I don't know that he's a great shooter, but when he's open, he knocks down shots. He can't really get to the basket, but if you give him an open lane, he's getting to the basket and he's going to finish on you. He's getting in there and mucking it up on rebounds. Like I've said this a couple times in our podcast, is that that 4 position coming off the bench, him and Brandon Johns. I mean, that's really the X factor. If they get any combination of 12 to 14 points from those 2 guys, Michigan's a much better team than when they're getting a total of 4 points and 2 rebounds from those 2 guys. And I think Terence Williams is that guy. We had lots of high hopes for Brandon being able to come in this year and give him a nice spark off the bench and give him a boost, and he just hasn't been there this year, which is
it's unfortunate.
Terence Williams, I think,
nice young man.
is filling in that role. He's finally coming into his own. You can see he believes in himself. He's in at the end of the game. He's in clutch situations, and when he comes in, I mean, we can go back to the Indiana game at Indiana, the game at Ohio State. He comes in and immediately makes an impact and really changes the game. And now I think for him, he seems to play better on the road. There's something about him being
he does. That's a good point.
Kind of it's almost like he's too comfortable. Oh, the crowd's here and my
Indiana
here,
was great.
People in here, and where otherwise he's going on the road. It's a hostile environment. He comes in and he's shushing the crowd and doing all this stuff and talking a little shit. I'm looking forward to what he's going to do against Indiana again.
Well, he's going to be on the road. He's going to be on the road, from now on.
Yeah, from now on. And Indiana, he had a great game at Indiana. It's a good matchup for us. And he's going to be on their scouting report now, where I guarantee you in Bloomington, he was on the scouting report, but it's like, just kind of slow him down. He's not really going to do a whole lot. And he's the one that kept us in that game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's capable of doing the next couple of weeks.
Well, I want to talk about one other kid. It's a kid, and I mentioned this in a prior podcast, as bears repeating. When I get to the Chrysler Arena, I get there early, and I come down the tunnel from the media center, and there's one player, and you know what this is like, the pregame ritual. This is like 90 minutes before the game. Some guys go out and do shoot around. He's out there with a manager, feeding him the ball, Kobe Buffkin. taking shots in the coffin corner, and at the wing, he's hitting them all. I mean, this guy is clearly dedicated to hitting shots, and he had his moment. He hit the shot of the game against Ohio State. Michigan needed a bucket, and I'm trying to think if they were up 2, and he comes down and hits a 3. And they closed. And it was a game clinching basket. He had the guts to shoot the ball. I thought that was that took a lot. That a lot of moxie right there. He took the ball, took the shot, and he nailed it. I mean, where's this kid in your radar right now, relative throughout the season? Where he's at right now and moving forward?
Well, if you look back to that play against Ohio State, Devontae Jones penetrates. He kind of gets stuck on the baseline, and you can see his eyes. He's like, "Oh man, where the hell am I going with this?" Like he had nowhere to go.
I remember that exactly.
On him. And if you watch one of the camera angles, they kind of zoom out, and you see Kobe Buffkin. He's on like the elbow extended, and he sees Devontae penetrate, and he starts kind of creeping up, and he's moving from his right to his left, kind of heading towards the top of the key, and he loses his defender, and his defender's got his back turned to him, and he got to the exact perfect spot, read exactly where Devontae Jones needed him to be, and then the moxie of this kid to step up and make that shot after, I mean, he's shooting in the teens from 3 on the season. He's not really been a 3-point factor at all, and he stepped up and knocked that shot down like he knew what the hell he was doing. I mean, and there was no hesitation. There was no thinking about it. He just catch right in rhythm and knocked it down. I mean, it was.
Sometimes it takes one shot to get off the schneid. You're almost like your career. I mean, how many times have I seen these pregame shoot-arounds, and then I'm in the game. It's not the ball's. Maybe it's halfway down, pops out. It just doesn't go in typically.
And making a shot like that in that type of situation on the road might just be what he needs to springboard him into being an 8 to 10 to 12 point per game kid, because he's getting the minutes now and he's getting the looks, but he's either not taking them or missing them really, really ugly. And maybe now he's going to start thinking, oh, look what I did against Ohio State, and now I'm capable. It's just that little spark of confidence that guys need. That, I mean, anything's possible. And he sees that. A 5th-year guy in Devontae Jones has got confidence in him. That's also a very big thing. To pass him the ball in that situation where, Devontae wasn't looking for Eli. He was looking for whoever was open, and he saw Kobe Buffkin, and he could have very easily.
I was looking for Eli on the screen, on the TV screen. I was looking for Eli.
Or done something else, and he threw it to this kid knowing that he could make the shot. And sometimes that's all a guy needs is that belief in himself and the belief of his teammates to be able to make those shots.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of former players who saw him play in high school ball, including Wayman Britt talked about him not too long ago. I mean, this guy has got a lot of upside. And I remember the Iowa game. Remember in Iowa City, he had a breakaway, a touchdown, turnover for touchdown. He in that jam. He just poked it. I mean, the guy's got a ton of athleticism.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's why he was a high recruit, a 5-star kid, and all this potential and stuff like that. And it's kind of like Caleb Houston really early in the season where it didn't immediately translate. There was something missing. And I think now he's getting more minutes and it's starting to click. And I'm telling you, this shot, we're going to be looking back in a couple weeks, and I have a feeling that this shot's going to be a big catalyst for him.
It's an NCAA clincher. I mean, I think Michigan, I feel fairly confident unless something, we have these mid-major upsets and Michigan, if Michigan beats Indiana, I mean, we're sleeping the rest of the weekend. With no anxiety.
Yes.
I really think so.
Yeah. If we win against Indiana, then we're in trouble. But
one more kid I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap up with some projections of what this is going to happen this weekend. But Caleb Houston, I'm going to just qualify this. He did some nice things in the 11 steal effort that Michigan's defense had. He had some deflections and things like that.
Very active hand.
And one save from out of bounds, dish back in, which was absolutely terrific.
Yes.
But 0 for 10, he didn't score.
Nope.
And he gets to 30 minutes. I mean, so that means he'll be terrific against Indiana, right? With Taylor.
Yes, that's exactly what that means. But that's what we've been talking about with him and with Brandon Johns and with a bunch of these other guys. Okay, you're not scoring. He's 0 for and all this, but he still contributed. He's still an active hand. There's always ways you can contribute. You don't always have to score. Do something to justify yourself being out there and getting 30 minutes a game, which he did. Like at the end of the game, I looked at the box score and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess Caleb didn't really score and didn't really do a whole lot on the offensive side, but he justified himself being out there. Like, it wasn't like, oh man, he's just running up and down and his guy's scoring and he's not doing anything. He was a part of what was going on. He had a couple big steals, he had a couple big plays, and he was just very, very active. He was in there mucking it up on rebounds. He might not have got his hand on it, but he was tipping them out. Like, he was.
There was a tip out. Yeah, a couple
he
tip
was
outs.
very, very involved, which is what you have to do. That's the only way you can justify those type of minutes for a guy that's not scoring.
Okay, what do you expect for Michigan this week? Let's just talk. We won't even talk about the NC2A. We'll worry about that next week on our podcast down in the block for Chris Young. But what do you think is going to happen? Starting with Indiana tomorrow, that's 11:30 tip.
Yep.
At down in Indianapolis, and then if they win that game, they go 11:30 against Illinois, who's just sitting there waiting for them. So they know what their homework is the first two outings. What's going to happen?
I mean, I really like our matchups with Indiana. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson are two phenomenal bigs, but we've got two phenomenal bigs. Okay. And it's a matter of who can stay out of foul trouble, who's going to be the aggressor on offense. And then it's, we got to make shots, which has been the story of our season all year. We go 4 for 18, we're losing the game. We go 7 for 15, we're definitely winning the game. It's all a matter of if we can make shots, and we tend to play better away from home. Everybody, especially T. Will, playing away from home, playing with a little bit of a hostile crowd because it's in Indianapolis, so Indiana always travels well, so they'll have a good contingent of fans. So I expect that we should win that game, and then. I mean, after that, like you said, we're basically playing with house money.
Yeah.
We obviously have the ability to beat Illinois. It's a matter of how fresh we're going to be physically and mentally, and if we want to decide to put something together and beat them. Right. Kofi is, he's a monster. He's a man among boys.
He's a bad matchup. He's a bad matchup for Michigan.
But he's a bad matchup for everybody. So, there's been teams the last couple of weeks that have been able to get him in foul trouble and get him a little out of sync and out of sorts. If we can do that, I like the rest of our matchups. Stepanovic is a tough matchup, but he's a tough matchup for everybody. So
see, back to Illinois for a second, Chris. What I don't like about the Illinois matchup, because you got Colbert, and then you got those three guards that are all the same. They're all same caliber.
Yep.
Corbella, and Trent Frazier and Plummer. I mean, it's like pick your poison. They all seem to just hurt Michigan.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's the good thing about Devontae Jones now stepping up and playing the way that he's playing. Everyone knows what we're getting out of Eli Brooks. It's just he's Mr. Consistent. We know he's going to defend and he's going to do that. Well, now we've got that from our 1 and our 2. Yeah. So now we got to get Musa to keep playing the way he's been playing. We know what we're getting from Hunter Dickinson, and it's that 3 position. It's that Caleb Houston. Like, okay, what's he going to bring? Is he going to be the Caleb Houston that's just running up and down, or is he going to contribute and score and do all the other little things? We're very capable of beating Indiana, obviously, and we're very capable of beating Illinois. Then anything's possible. Yeah, I really feel like we can get to Saturday, and then anything can happen.
Well, it's all house money. I'm looking at Chris. I'm looking at house money on Friday, to be honest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and get this W.
Yeah, get the W tomorrow, and then play well, and potentially get the win on Friday, and then we're for sure in. Then we're a 10 seed or 11 seed, and if you're one of these West Coast teams or something like that, do you want to play Michigan as an 11 seed? Oh, you had a good tournament, and you did this, and you're coming in as a 5 or a 6 seed, and you're playing Michigan. It's the same like playing Michigan State. You don't want to play them as a 10, 11, 12 seed. That's just not what you want to do if you're one of these other teams. So, it actually, I think it would be good for us to be that type of seed because we're a little bit of an underdog and not a whole lot of expectations. We can go out and play freely in the NCAA tournament, but we got to get through tomorrow first.
Yep. All right. He's Chris Young, former Wolverine, great analyst on the Crawford Podcasting Network. Down in the Blocks, the name of the podcast. Until next time, CY.
All right.
Go
Tom.
Blue.
Go Blue.
See ya.